Distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, peace be upon you. Actually, in order to delve into the subject of academic education in Yemen, makes us feel very sad when we talk about it and about what happened to it in Yemen, because we all acknowledge the fact that science, knowledge, education are very important in any successful cultural experience. And any successful country and successful experiences are all connected to good realities regarding academic education. But going backward in this field, it means losing a very essential principle for development. And unfortunately, if in our country we had invested 3 years ago in a solid educational infrastructure in cities and suburbs, we wouldn't have witnessed today different gangs who are targeting our country, our future, and these gangs were versed into ignorance, and now they're using this ignorance against our people. So the lack of educational institutions that are able to go forward with the future of Yemen is a real problem. Dear guests, I'd like to open this session about education, which we dedicated in order to discuss education, its reality today and the future of it. We will also discuss the new brands and specialties in universities, the challenges faced by educators and students in universities, and we will touch upon sectarian issues in universities and the role of education in building states and cultures, and we will also touch upon another schemes of education that are in line with the new education schemes around and lines around the world. Today we have 6 guests, 7 participants in this session. Dr. Shakir Al-Ashwal, the Executive Director for Qatar, and Dr. Handel Al-Milani, the Head of Renewable Energy from Taz University, Dr. Al-Damiani, the doctor who teaches Saad Iskandar. Also, we have Saad Iskandar, the Professor of Islamic History and Director of the Center of the Heritage and Culture at Taz University. We have also Ali Al-Kazimi from the Netherlands, and also we have from the Netherlands Habib Sururi, who will join us, who is a Professor of Computer Science and a researcher. I'd like to emphasize that each participant will have 15 minutes to discuss his points, and at the end of this session, we'll open the floor for questions and answers. Dr. Ahmed Al-Ashwal, the floor is yours, talking about new and modern trends in university specialties. Dr. Shakir Al-Ashwal is an expert in education, about education and new technologies. He is now the executive director and in partnership with Arkansas in Qatar. His experience go back to more than 20 years in developing curriculums in United States and in the Gulf area. The floor is yours. Thank you. We have 15 minutes for this presentation. Thank you. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, we will begin with Yemen, because Yemen is the essence of our story. More than that, it is our story. It is the story, the whole story. And I'd like also to to express my thankfulness to Tawakkol Karman Foundation, Dr. Marwan Al-Ghararifuni, and all those who worked on this conference. Today, we will talk about modern trends in university majors, and it is divided into 4 lines. The first one, the modern trends in work markets around the world, and then new or modern trends in the Gulf area, as it is an extension, geographical extension for Yemen area, and maybe it is one of the best Arab and Muslim models in going hand in hand with the new trends, and also would like to learn from these experiences and understand lessons from them, looking at their positive and negative aspects. In addition, Gulf area is a very important standard for us. Then we will talk about trends in Yemen in shadow of the challenges we live. Then we will conclude talking about opportunities. Of course, there are 4 aspects that there are 170 jobs or vacancies that are going to be created, and other number will disappear. 22% of jobs will be changed dramatically, and also 39% of abilities need to be changed in order to go in line with the demands of today's market. Of course, there are 4 leading factors behind these changes and this transformation in the market. The first one of these changes is digital transformation, artificial intelligence, automatization, Internet of Things, cybersecurity, and then we have green economy and blue economy. Both of them are related to stability, to sustainability, whether on land or in sea. For Yemen, we have 2,000 kilometers of seaside shores, and this is a very important thing we need to look at and take care of. And we have also demographic changes that take place in the USA, Japan, Europe, that are getting older and older, and we have the young communities. We have 65% of Yemeni people are younger than the 20-year-old. Economic, also, what are the trends, scientific trends? So we need always to talk about trends in the market. We also mention what we mentioned about cybersecurity, sustainability, all the things that are related to environment, energy, batteries, recycling, sustainable agriculture, sustainable also sustainable environment when we talk about fishery, when we talk about the seas, also healthcare, not only in the West countries but also in the area. We notice that there is good investment in medical and mental health logistics, which demand very huge cadre. And also we have other sectors which are education, finance and business, logistics and smart supply chains, creative sectors and digital media. All this is connected with the new technologies also that create new jobs and vacancies. So we are now looking into or witnessing and living into a reality that is changing a lot. these vacancies need skills. Today, people talk a lot about AI, artificial intelligence, to replace human power. But of course, there are some skills that AI is unable to replace. So the vacancies, the jobs where the human interaction and the human interference is important, is going to remain protected from any changes or in which digitalization or AI might touch. So we might delve more into some philosophical discussions about AI and its role in innovative thoughts. We cannot actually be predictable 100% of what's the future of that. As for adaptation and if we live today and witness these changes in our world, so one of the important skills is resilience and adaptability. So I think in Yemen we have these two skills because of what we suffered in Yemen and of what Yemenis in the diaspora also go through. And we have all the technical needed skills related to AI, huge databases, networks, cybersecurity, and others, and also about environmental awareness. This might need some skills to be able to feel responsibility and connectivity to the environment, and this is a skill needed. And there are some jobs and vacancies will be open related to this field. As for the promising fields, university fields, artificial intelligence, sustainable power and energy, about cybersecurity. You have some percentages here in front of you. The technologies about genetic technologies and other technologies, and also economic technologies. If we look at the university major specialties today offered in the Gulf area, we can see from this map that these majors or fields of study in the Gulf countries are go line in line with the changes, the new changes in the market. For example, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, today we have 86% of the universities give specialties related to artificial intelligence. We find also solar energy in engineering, nuclear medicine, also data management and data analyzing. If we move to Qatar, I have only just some examples of the university major studies there about the marine sciences, also AI again, the digitalization. All these specialties that we find go in line with the changes in the market. Of course, these new specialties and major programs are not coming out of a vacuum. They come as a response to the needs in the market and also to huge investments given in this way. For example, in Saudi Arabia, 192 billion Riyal Saudi around are for education, around 40% of it for higher education, which means $20 billion to support the higher education, including research. In addition to that, there are huge investments in which the Saudi Arabia delve into as a partner and not as a consumer for AI. Now they have partnerships with millions of dollars to build centers, data centers, computerizing centers in the area that will push these countries and open the door for them to be partners in this field. Also in the UAE, there are huge investments in AI. The UAE steps very fast to the future. There is the University of Mohammed bin Zayed for AI. Of course, these investments have also income, a very great big income. We expect that the United Arab Emirates will gain around $90 billion within a few years from these investments. So our point is that there are infrastructure needed, also centers and universities, and investment in these fields. If we go back to our situation in Yemen, and maybe our colleagues from Yemen might be more capable to describe the situation here, but the challenges is financial crisis, also problems about budgets and salaries. The problem and the big problem we live in Yemen is that losing generations through the decades, the last decades, because of deterioration of academic conditions. And if there is a child born today in 2025, in 2050, this young man or young man will need a place in the market. And this is the challenge. So the question here, which market they will be able to play a role in addition to the economic situation of the families that will affect students also. And we have also decentralization in educational trends and their differences. These are all connected to the status quo, whether political or economic. If we look in the Gulf area as an example, we might see the source of the problem is in the vision.
So as you can find on the slides, if we looked at the views of Gulf countries for 2030, 2040, their visions are related to the turning from or transferring from turning the type of education on focusing on the enhancement of education, development of education for the future, and to support entrepreneurship. Whilst when we looked at the visions of Yemen and the visions of of the actors in Yemen, in best case scenario, the vision is related to rebuild the state. So we are still in the first rank or at the beginning of the ranks, whilst other countries took further steps and they have different visions. So, Dr. Ahmed, you have 1 minute left. Actually, as for the specializations in the Yemeni university, they are traditional ones. There are AI specialty in one of the universities, and even when we have this specialty, we might not have the environment, the laboratories needed for that specialty. That's why we are so backwarded, and we have the opportunity for the higher education. We need to look into the solutions, and also we need to look into the national or local specialties and enhance them. But enhancing the specialties is not only to meet the market needs, but also to meet the market needs not only in Yemen but also in the whole region and around the world. Also for the international partnership, We also talked about it, and we talked about Tawakkol Karman and how it is participating in this. Lastly, the strategic recommendations. We find that the government or governments, because we are lucky to have more than one government in Yemen, so you find that in the gray typing to have partnership with the private sector, because we believe that this role might be a little bit delayed. That's why we need to promote the other roles, like the role of the international NGOs, civil society organizations, the partnership, and the Yemeni academic role outside of Yemen, and on the investment of the links of Yemen outside, that is established with entities outside of Yemen in order to coordinate with the entities that they can work with. Also, we have this recommendation for the students, for them to look forward to the future and to take on their shoulders the responsibility to build the future. For the Yemeni students, they first should learn English language as a key for acquiring more opportunities of a better education and a better participation around the world. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Shakir, for your presentation. I'd like to remind you that we will have an open discussion session at the end of this session. We heard in this presentation at the university specialties and how the future is imposing some of the changes in regard to the academic specialties and skills. All of the reforms will not be fruitful unless we made the student part of this equation, because he is or she is the axe or the core of this educational process, and they are the first beneficial of it. Here we will move to the second presentation about the reality of the university students in Yemen with Dr. Mukhtar Al-Amrani. Dr. Mukhtar Al-Amrani is a professor in engineering in Taz University. He's a researcher in nanotechnology and in the implementation of renewable energy, and he has tens of international and national research in this regard. Thank you. In the name of Allah, first I'd like to thank Tawakkol Karman organization for organizing this conference and for inviting me here. I don't want to waste a lot of time. So let us talk about this big topic, that challenges that is facing the students in the Yemeni universities. The presentation, if it can be on screen. We did not come all the way from Yemen to talk about theories, definitions, academic thoughts, to define the students, but we came here to talk about the agony of the students, which is a big issue that I've been preparing and collecting data for 3 years on it. And I was trying to get an accurate data, but unfortunately on the websites of universities and research centers we don't have any accurate data on this regard. So it took me a lot of effort to get you some correct data and to give you an idea on how we can solve the problem of students in Yemen. So we can begin with solving the problem by giving a correct definition of that problem. So everyone knows that the university education in Yemen, because of the war, has now 2 systems, a system in Sana'a and system in the other area, as if they are working or happening in 2 different countries. The research methodology, it was a quantitative and qualitative research. We collect data from 13,000 students. We asked them questions about important issues, and we made surveys for 1,670 students, female and males, and on through important things. The first one is the reality of the university students after high school and their situation during university phase, and their situation also while they are looking for a job, and they are always suffering from to find a job because of the war condition, because of the war, let me say, traders. This is in relation to the data. We have also some statistics, but I will not read them in order to save some time for you. So we try to collect some data in order to answer the three important questions. The first problem we face in the Yemeni universities, and I work in Taz University since 10 years, and it is a problem that the students with a high average, but there is no real scale to measure the real level. So I collected data for more than 12,000 students in order to show you the real gap between the high rates they are getting at the end of the high school and the real level, educational level, because some students come with 99% of an average, but when they do the admission test for the university, they only take 55%, which is a big gap. That's why we had to add an additional year of education to some of the branches of the university to become 5 years of study instead of 4 years. So this is a problem that we suffer from, and the parents are also suffering from. Yemen is the only country that need to add a year of education between high school and university in order to rehabilitate the students. So this is one of the problems. So we made, let us talk about this first curve. We made this comparison between Taz University and we saw the average between 2006 and 2024. The average of that is where the average of grades were 90%, while the average of grades for the admission test was 18%. But in the other university reached 50%. In Shabwa, for example, governors, Mara, Tala, and the faraway governorate, and we also collected data from Ajara, and then we worked for or with three universities, the University of Ib, the University of Sana'a, the University of Taz, and we found out that the average reaches 27%, which is 3% of the Yemeni government or state. So this is what we mean. So we have a gap of 36%, and then we made this comparison between the average of the school grades, also the comparison tests for admission, also tests. So here you can see in the red color that the comparison tests and the university admission tests in the green color also are similar, so which means that the admission tests are good, but the gap in both of the universities, in Taz University, for example, the gap is still 13 and 11%. Now we have this very important curve. We took the information from the Ministry of Higher Education. It is very important because it is talking about a unified test for all of the students in Yemen. Here you can see that in the capital, Taz, and I also collected samples from 11 governorates. Each university provided us with 50 students, and this is the average gap we found out. So it reached the 40s and 50s in the other states, but in the capital we had it like 30%. Now let's move to this very important point that I'm here to talk about. I came from Yemen to tell you that despite all of these accurate numbers, we have 46% of the graduate students, high school graduates who do not enroll in university or vocational education institutes in Yemen. So I hope that this conference will lead to decreasing this percentage, at least in relation to the average. Let me not take a lot of your time. Let's move to the next phase. During university, the students suffer from external environment, which is the effects or impacts of the civil war on the education of the students, and also the problems, the domestic problems in the family, and the problems of finding a residence and transportation. Also, we have a problem related to the lack of the human power in regard to the staff of the university, the lack of the services, the non-defined curricula. Also, we created this survey for 1,000, around 1,000 graduate students. We noticed that the professors and lecturers at universities are taking the least salaries, and this is a problem. Of course, this graph is showing that the income of the teachers and lecturers or professors at universities is the least, and that point in particular will be discussed by my colleague. And let's now move to the next point, the difficult economic conditions. Around 68% of university students work whilst they are studying. 14% take a full-time job or a continuous job, and 38% of males only depend on their parents financially, and 93% of female students depend on their parents financially during their study. The students here suffer from a lot during their study, so they live in stores that even then do not include toilets, so they need to go to the mosques if they needed a toilet, and sometimes they work as delivery men on motorcycles, and they had to take a lot of debts and in order to manage their financial problems. As for the residents, 51% of the male students and in the university housing is usually percentage need to be increased in order to reach 60%. I will not read all of the percentages in order not to take a lot of your time. If you looked here at this graph of Taz University, you can see that the female students is more than 50%, and it decreased during the war, but in the last 6 years we have a big decrease of the female students, of the female students percentage from 51% to 36%, and in some of the university it decreased up to the 24%. As for the private universities, it is also decreasing. I made a lot of studies with experts, and we reached all of these four results or reasons, but of course we need more insights. Dr. Mukhtar, you have 3 minutes left. The increase of the number of programs with special expenses, 61% in TAS governorate, the closure of most of the programs in the education, pedagogy university, not to have special programs to talk to people in the countryside, and also because of the campaigns against universities, especially those with religious appearance, because they affect big time. So as a scientific research, we need more study to understand how much they are affecting. Also, this graph from the university about the year 2023, that includes 11 universities from the Eastern Governorates. The percentage now also decreased, and we need this conference to enhance the percentages of this graph. Also, if we come to the situation of the students after graduation, here the graph is similar to the development graph in Yemen. We have this increase again, and then after the new government, we got a new decrease. So it is similar to the development curve. Also, we asked the students if they serve in the civil service. To the graduate students in the last 10 years, we noticed that the people are losing their trust in the government. So no one wants to apply for governmental jobs anymore. So as for the inner engineers, I made a survey with 115 engineers. Only 3.5% of them now are state employees, and the rest usually prefer to leave the country. As for the conclusion, I don't want to repeat the same thing, so let me tell you, those who are interested, I will send you my research. As for the recommendation, let me tell you very quickly a story. 2 months ago in Taz University, in the engineering branch, I was assigned to monitor the students during the exam, and the students were very organized, were in an alphabetical order, and with the N letter, we noticed that there is an 11 student in the room with the name Nasrallah starting with an N. So I started to think, so all of them were born in 2006 and 2007. I hope you got my point. Thank you so much. So this is a very difficult study, and it shows us the amount of the big challenges that the student is facing in Yemen. This percentage is a very big one, and I'm really worried about this. I think we will open the discussion session. We will have it later on. Now let us move to the very important topic, the suffering of the professors and lecturers of university in Yemen. We know that the students are very important, but also the teachers of those students are very important, and their situation will be reflected on the educational process completely. Now with Dr. Muhammad At-Tabali talking about the suffering of the university students, teachers in Yemen and its impact. And it is related on the Muhammad At-Tabali is a professor. So Muhammad At-Tabali is a professor of education, administration, and planning in Taz University in Yemen. Peace be upon you. So there is a lot to say. We started to talk about the university specialty, then we talked about the suffering of the students, and now we will be talking about the suffering of the professors. I hope, before I start, and this is also part of the suffering, I hope that this conference to be held in one of the Yemeni cities. But this is part of our suffering. We always need to travel from one country to another. And as Dr. Marwan said, it is like Odyssey. It is a long marathon for us in order to reach Istanbul, in order to talk to and say your word. And no country, not all countries will agree to allow us to gather here because they are afraid of security problems. And this is one of the big sufferings we are suffering from. So the professors in Yemen suffer, and that talking about this topic is very important, because if the teacher and the students are suffering, then that would mean that this suffering will continue forever unless we ended this problem. The professors in Yemen suffer from things everyone knows. It is an independent variable because it became a reality. We don't want to talk about the impact of the war on how the professors are suffering. No, but we would like to say that suffering became the reality, the living reality of the professors. The professor's agony is a tangible reality that cannot be denied by anyone, neither inside or outside of Yemen. So I will be talking in short because of the limited time I have. Otherwise, we need hours and hours to talk about the suffering of the professors. The professors under the destruction of war after the coup in 2014, the data show us that 85% of university professors, according to UNESCO, 85% of professors in Yemen, according to the UNESCO report 2024, did not take their salaries. And if they took the salaries, they are not enough for the minimum level of living a dignified life. That result led to a lot of questions about the impact on the life of the teachers, on the economic, social levels. So the impact of this suffering, economic suffering and social suffering, and on the academic level also, and what is the political and what is the impact of the social, political, psychological suffering of the students, of the professors. So we eliminated any zero assumption during our research, because everything was there. The answers of the survey was always strongly agree. we got a lot of strongly agree. So the importance of this study come from the fact that the topic itself is important and that the objective of the research was to, we know the objective, let us not talk about it. What about reading previous literature on the same topic? We had similar literature review for some researches that happened before 2011, but after that no one talked about it because everyone was so afraid to talk about it. We included percentages, so if someone wants to review the paper, we have a lot of graphs, tables that show you the numbers, statistics about the suffering of the professors. However, the most important one that was that. So the most important percentage was that the one talking about the economic suffering, the livelihood suffering, and it took the biggest numbers, and then the psychological pressure, then security risks, and at the end we saw how in Ebb University 70 more than 70 staff members of that university are now arrested. And professors, colleagues who used to run private universities and run governmental universities, and they have long experience on all different fields, they were arrested since after the Al-Adha Eid. These are some of the statistics we needed to mention. Also, the economic suffering was the most important topic. We had a consensus on this suffering. More than 90% of the responders said strongly agree when we asked them about the economic suffering. So it is a living reality. The economic suffering is still continuous. When I was talking to Dr. Nada, some of the professors, they might become isolated and they might leave their work because they don't want to get embarrassed of not being able to attend certain events, or they might be seen while they are taking relief baskets as a help. So we have also this academic educational suffering as a result of the economic suffering. We know that when the professors suffer, the economic education will also deteriorate, and that will create to a scientific isolation and will make the quality of the education in Yemen become decreased. Also, political and security suffering. Here we find different levels of suffering according to the, or depending on the area. Actually, it happens more in the areas dominated by Houthis militias. The jails there are full of academics. And of course, suffering is everywhere, but it is more in the Houthis area because the jails are full of academics, and people prefer to stay at home. And even if you are going to the university to lecture, you will not dare to talk freely during the lecture. This is one of the that was one of the questions of the survey, that they feel afraid during their lecture. Also, the psychological social suffering was also a result because the psychological health of the professors are now fragile. They are much affected because of the continuous pressures. They are not receiving any psychological support, which leading to psychological problems that is hindering them from being fully capable of teaching and of socializing, because when you are under a continuous pressure and fear, you will not be psychologically healthy. the recommendations of this paper that we got also through reviewing other literatures on education in Yemen. Previous literature did not tackle the core problem, and it's more dependent on the efforts of the researcher. One of the results we reached were, first, the sample of the research, they agreed that the suffering on the economics, political, social, psychological levels of the professor, all of these things, along with the living conditions, which is the biggest factor, all of these together affected the educational system and process. And when the professors are not taking their salaries, and that was due to the continuous war. It is also leading to big problems. Also, they agreed strongly that the promotion within universities is not fair, and that there is bias within the internal system of the university, especially in the areas dominated by Houthis. Also, the working teams formed in order to make certain educational tasks within the university are being selected in a way that opposers are not allowed to be part of, especially in the areas under Houthis control. Most of the sample members agreed that the Yemeni universities the way they are working mentally and intellectually affected the psychological safety of the teachers, and that random, brutal arrest of the staff members and a lack of the justice because of the sectarian partition look within the university is affecting the soundness of the professors, and all of that is threatening the multiplicity of branches in Yemen. And if this war continued between the Houthis and the legitimate government, and if we continued with having such a split, so it will be a problem. Let me now move to the recommendations.
You have 5 minutes. Okay. Improve salaries, give economic support in order to limit brain drain and the traveling of professors outside, prohibit arms from being used inside the university campuses, enabling professors to travel abroad to attend conferences, provide materials for education. Also, reaching a political solution is very important, and it is the step that is needed to stop the suffering of professors and deterioration of the educational process. Also, to consider the salaries in order to provide dignified life for the professors and their families. And also, the researcher suggests the importance of more in-depth researchers touching each aspect of the suffering of the professors, each one by itself, especially the security suffering and economic suffering of the professors, because they are the most important two aspects of this suffering. And also, thank you so much, and I wish for this conference to be very fruitful. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed, for this presentation. As the doctor mentioned, we need a lot of studies in order to talk about the suffering of the students and also the professors in Yemen, suffering double when the environment is polarized, and when sectarianism takes place inside universities, that leads us to go with Dr. Saeed Iskandar to talk about sectarian infiltration in Yemeni universities. Dr. Saeed Iskandar is a professor of Islamic history and relationships. He's a researcher in Islamic history and relationships between West and East through the emergence of Islam, and he has some researches in about the sects in Islamic history, and now he's the professor of Islamic history and director of Center of Heritage and Culture at Taiz University. In the name of Allah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, peace and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad. First of all, I'd like to thank this foundation, Tawakkol Karman Foundation, and Miss Tawakkol Karman, and I'm so happy to graduate about to memorize your anniversary, and so hope for you the best for Yemen, for its people, whether inside Yemen or in the diaspora. And thanks for Moran Loti and his team, and Dr. Miska, our executive director, and also the other committee for organizing this conference, and Dr. Hayat Lahani, who shared with us all this journey step by step. I'm glad and honored to share with you today in our conference Yemeni researchers and experts. Under the logo, there is no leader but knowledge, and there is no leader but people. And I'm talking about sectarian infiltration in Yemeni universities, about the book of culture as a model, of course, under the area, in the areas where the Houthi group is controlling. There is a big suffering, and any attempt that is daring attempts there are limited, because they haven't been satisfied only by controlling the educational institutions and buildings and schools in order and convert them into places for their military bases. And they changed also the curriculum, and they imposed them in all the education levels in all the areas they control. Maybe tens of thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands people who graduate from high schools, they are fed mentally, I mean, by all these books that are full of ideologies that target our Yemeni IDs identity. So you have here some of the books, Islamic culture from a Quranic vision, and I just read the national culture, this book, which was issued in 2023. Of course, previously in 2018, there was a book by Huda Al-Imad, but in one of its chapters, it included about state, citizenship, sovereignty, and law. They deleted all this. They came up with this edition, which has no name, no writer's name on it. And I skimmed over this book, I read it through it, and as we know, since Houthis took control in 2014, they started working very hard in order to push sectarianism to be there in Yemen, in all the educational institutions also. The sectarian infiltration there since the come of Yahya al-Rassi and establishing his sect in order to distinguish his group over the other parts of the Yemeni population. And since then we suffered a lot of sectarian problems, and Yemenis paid the price of it to counter this look at them from above. And There is a revolution in September that took place, which was one of the biggest revolutions in the history and most important ones that regain the meaning of the true Islam for Yemenis, the true Islam which the Prophet Muhammad SAW preached. However, again, the sectarians made a coup against the Yemeni state and opened the way for their project, for the Sectarian project. Of course, in this book, I have two main ideas to deal with. Of course, the first one about the book of we are talking. When you look at this book and go through these chapters, you have that the book states that the people of Yemen loved the companions who were good companions and didn't turn back or didn't make a coup, as if they were people of revolutions against state, as Houthis they do today. This is a hidden accusation of the Sahaba and the companions of God. When also they mentioned the rightly guided caliphs who launched the Islamic conquerors, Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman, they don't mention them, they just focus on Ali. Although it is known that during the days of his caliphate, no wars, real wars or openings happened because of the fitna happened at this time. So he says in it, despite our conviction that if the guardianship had proceeded in the manner desired by God and His Messenger and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, so there is also distorting the Islamic conquests during the era of the rightly guided caliphates. Also, for other Islamic periods of time in history, we see that this book tries to put sectarianism there. They describe the Umayyads Caliphate as a barbarian invasion and also accusing them of cursing Ali ibn Abi Talib, seeding, putting the seeds of hatred and accusing the Ayyubi, the Abbasids of being bloody people, Ayyubis, and their founder Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Uh, and also accusing the Ayyubis and the Mamluks that they occupied Yemen and committed atrocities in there. So it is very difficult to understand what they're talking about. Although the Ayyubis and the Mamluks after them, they protected the Islamic world from the Mughal and Tatar and from a Western invasion. Of course, this is very serious accusation and a very dangerous way of thinking. The other title here, the other title here is to implement their sectarian vision on different aspects of Yemen's history, because they say that Ali ibn Abi Talib, he was the one who made Islam spread in Yemen, and this is historically not correct. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sent a number of Sahabis, of companions to Yemen. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, al-Khaza'i, Mu'adh bin Jabal, and others also were sent by the Prophet Muhammad. So the Yemenis converted to Islam, not on the hands of Ali bin Abi Talib. May Allah be pleased with him. And also, they say that all these things happened because of Ali bin Abi Talib. They say that they were Shia, and some of them the Muhaddith al-Shi'i al-San'ani. Of course, al-San'ani was not Shia. And as we can understand, the political Shiite, which happened lately, or and also that Yemen embraced the thought of Ahl al-Bayt and supported it throughout history. After that, we have also trying to omit the national memory of the young men and women of the youth in Yemen, especially when they talked about overthrowing important trials in the history of Yemen in 61, which happened in the north, and also against the British also occupier in the south, of political and numerical rights, particularly presidential and local elections. They didn't mention the most important achievements in Yemeni revolutions in September, and they didn't even mention the title of Yemeni unity, Yemen unity. Hundreds of thousands of students read this without mentioning Yemen unity or unifying Yemen. In addition to that, one of the subjects also under the first line I'm talking about, embedding the idea of connecting all the history of Yemenis to Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him. Again, they say that they embraced Islam because of Ali, the leader Ali as a judge in Yemen as a leader, and then they quote some of the prophetic hadiths about it, and they try to make use of the love of Yemenis to Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased him, and work on this point in order to invest for their own benefits. Yes, we do love Ali, and this is our right. Okay, pretending that the Yemeni people actually this book only limits all the history of Yemen according to Ahl al-Bayt, and they just try to put some wrong hadiths. They lie inside it. They say that the Prophet said there is a man going to come from the descendants of Ali from Yemen called Yahya. And as we can see in this chart, they focused on the Hadawiyya sciences or scientific skills, 6 to 1 in some of the sciences. Then the Hadith science, the science of the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ. Then the Aqidah or the doctrine science, also science of language, also seer, as if they were all from Hadawi science or Hadawi scholars. It means like they were all not from the Sunni school of thought. You have only 3 minutes. Oh my God. A lot of things about disrespectful speech against the companions of the Prophet. They don't say even may God be pleased with him or radiallahu anhum, and their attempt to raise some of the poets who were known of their disrespect for the companions, and also the Yemeni identity and the absence of the Republican system. When you read this book, you witness that there is not a single mention to the Republican system in Yemen. They say about the different sects as if they were all non-believers. They also try to polish the image of royalty, and also accuse all Yemenis and the active Yemenis of being spies for the foreigners. Also, the relationship with the foreigners is just a relationship of enemies. Also, use some terminologies which are some of them are very very hostile, and they focus on the sectarian aspects, also political aspects, also about Iran. They try to be very enemies to what they call Wahhabis. They say that they are very extremists, and they also try to not take responsibility for the war that's going on in Yemen, and then changing of history and also changing of history, saying that Luthi is that they are the martyrs, and they call what happened in Yemen as a revolution, and which was not a revolution, it was an Nakba, and other ideas in the book which are very dangerous. They are they aim at just creating a new set of ideology which has nothing to do with Islam, with real Islam, and they can do pressure through media and result in divisions inside the society, and their attempts also to cover all aspects of republican systems. And one of the important things that come out of this research, as I said, that they accuse anyone who doesn't belong to them or their ideologies as being spies and also traitors. This also the book focused a lot about Imam Hadawi leadership of Muslims. So the book is empty from any national culture. I'd like to thank you a lot. I'm sorry because I extended a little bit over my time. Thank you again. Please be open now. Thank you so much. We admitted from the very beginning that sectarianism is a very problematic issue, but there are some experiences from other countries like Northern Ireland. They said that sectarianism might be faced, and this is a possible thing. Just to remind you, questions and answers will be addressed at the end of the session after we talked about the sectarian infiltration in the Yemeni universities. We move to university education in the age of artificial intelligence with Dr. Ali Al-Kadhimi. Dr. Ali Al-Kadhimi is a researcher on data science and artificial intelligence. He is specialists about medical data and analyzing it. Now he is a professor of data science and artificial intelligence in the Netherlands, and he works on data analyzing and using of artificial intelligence. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. It seems to me that the problem of education, which we've been listening to from our colleagues, refer to the fact that artificial intelligence might bridge the gap in this reality and answer the needs to of the professors and students. That's why I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence and how all the researchers all over the world proved that it has a very big impact on education and education process. First of all, I'd like to say to do a research in this field about university education in the age of artificial intelligence. This is a long-term research that needs to be delved into from different aspects and to have some of the data that was not easy to collect. But let me shortly tell you just briefly about the history of AI. We, all of us in this platform, um, maybe think and look at AI as the hope to provide solutions in the university education. Just imagine with me this picture when you watch Kasparov, who is the leader and the hero of chess on the world, who is considered that his mental ability in 1979 there was a competition not between him and another human being because he was a unique hero, but he was competing with a machine produced by IBM. This happened in 1979. Back then, the world never realized what is artificial intelligence was, and they didn't imagine if AI would be able really to overcome and to win over this genius person. But after 6 rounds of chess games, AI won. From that point on, people and human beings understood the importance of using this technology not only to prove that it's going to win over human beings, but to get benefit from AI in building our future. Of course, there is a lot of branches or a lot of topics that we can talk about when we address AI. That it is, we can say that it's a system that can think, educate itself, or learn and take decision. Of course, these three issues are very important, and it works through mathematical procedures, and very important for it, the data. Of course, what my colleagues mentioned here, that data is very important. Of course, there are a lot of branches to talk about when we talk about um, the artificial intelligence, and all of them are similar to human intelligence in about machine learning. When we talk about also the deep learning, a lot of these things like deep learning that's similar to human mind. It works through nerve cells in networking. So there are a lot of procedures that imitate a human brain. All these fields of study will have branches and specialties through which education or higher education will be improved. Of course, there are levels of AI. Many of us might not realize this fact. Now we are still in the first or narrow AI, including ChatGPT and others of AI tools, might be just identifying and recognizing faces, translating some Google instruments for aid and assistance. This is limited or narrow AI. There are other levels, for example, artificial general intelligence. And in the beginnings, this things started to recognize that processes comprehensive practical capabilities comparable to humans in reasoning and learning. These are in the theoretical research stage and have not yet fully caught up, so they can learn. It's advanced. They are advanced to the development learning, enforced learning. Also, there is a theory about rewards. If there is a mistake, it learns from this mistake. It then take a decision or make a decision to develop itself. So this takes its decision from the data provided to it. And this will help in the reinforcement learning. Of course, there is some issues we don't want to go delve into them. We have descriptive, we have also some use in the diagnostic analysis in the medical health, and also we have some predictive analytical about weather, for example, about markets, economic markets, and then we have also the how to improve new information depending on data after you give prompts to it and you ask them to do something, and this is also refers that development is important and gets benefit from the AI. The last one was the generative, also AI. And here about development in the technologies for AI, depending on the field, there is a need not only in Yemen and in the Arab area, but all around the world. There is a need. If you can look at the education center, it comes second after technology and media. It is number two, the field which got affected by or touched by AI, and this is the shows of the importance of adopting AI in our projects when we want to provide and draw policies to deal with AI. When maybe in this also chart, as can you can see in this diagram about the global growth in internet and ChatGPT use. It jumped from 300 million to 700 million within a few months in using ChatGPT and internet. This tells us that it's very important for us to go ahead and step further and go along with this trend about using AI. Also, other indicators show us the growth in using AI in education in the United States. Around 45% of students say it's very important to adopt AI in education, in mathematics. Also, there is an ability to give and provide responses and solutions to improve the education process, especially in our suburb areas, for example, that they cannot go to the education institutions. From using AI in the West, we can learn and implement some of the solutions based on AI. In Qatar, there is an application called Fanar that is directed towards the use of AI in education. Again, as you can see, the problem of higher education in Yemen in the age of AI. Of course, we heard a lot of it. We listened to our colleagues here. But there is a poverty in using and dealing with data sources also. This is a very essential issue. We touched some efforts from some of the researchers. They provided some of this research, but they actually were based on international reports. UNESCO, for example, or the International Bank. So they rely on some reports coming from the West, from America, reports written by other countries about Yemen. We couldn't find reports from Yemen itself. From here, we can touch on activating AI and using in reaching data, analyzing data, and pointing at the problem itself. For example, we have some problems. We have a lot of problems. If you can here notice, we have a very big problem on that. We have a problem because of the internet. Internet around 17%. We just compared between Egypt, Jordan, and we say the leading countries in the area like Saudi Arabia and Emirates. And then we looked at Western countries and the United States, and we looked at the results. But there is always there's, as I mentioned, the internet use doesn't exceed 17.7%. The cost of basic phone data services is 6.49, and other things. There are some challenges, including digital infrastructure, and then we have also, when we want to deal with this search, there was a limitation when we wanted to do review of literature, aerial literature, and this is why I call always to depend on AI. Also, when the Yemeni experience, when we compare it with similar educational system in the region, we need to mention the strategies, also practical and the gradual strategies that are proposed, also need to be proposed, and strategies that will take into consideration the status quo in Yemen. There are a lot of points in order to activate AI in the higher education system. And this research, there are application of some models, as happened in some countries around us, to focus on some areas, rural areas, for example, or remote areas, and how they can reach to the educational process. And this is very important. Also, one of the problems that we noticed in all the countries when we deal with universities, for example, in Amsterdam universities, they have open a line to for decision making with the government. They can take data directly from municipalities for services, and this provide them a vision. Through this vision, they can make decisions in order to help this state to take bigger decisions. Also using the AI through workshops, evaluation within the academy. Also, these are some numbers and statistics. If you can look at Yemen, Jordan, and Egypt, you can see Yemen here. Yemen is absent here from any policies, and this is a very important thing that we need to focus on and try to bridge this gap, to put policies to activate AI. It doesn't need a very huge infrastructure or support, but it needs experts to draw these policies. Also, there are a lot of problems mentioned too. Also, these indicators of readiness for artificial intelligence in Yemen is 14% only in Yemen, while in other countries like Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Emirates, it's different. It doesn't mean that we cannot do it. We are capable of doing it, but we need to step forward. At the end, of course, we have these basic levers for building artificial intelligence in education in Yemen universities, about having real outcomes, the capabilities, and the professional educators and universities also are very important. The conclusion The study concludes that higher education in Yemen operates within a limited enabling environment. Despite this, there is a full readiness for students to use generative AI. Realism doesn't require massive infrastructure, a gradual path that fosters academic integrity, paving the way for a safe and sustainable AI infrastructure. This should be called for and worked upon in order for our universities to be more ready for a sustainable AI use. There are some also recommendations short-term, mid-term and long-term, like to put policies that take into consideration the status quo in Yemen, establish research centers. This is for the medium term. Your points are very important, but unfortunately we ran out of time. Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. Any changes, technical changes, wouldn't be completed and fully implemented without integrating AI inside it. And we'll move to a lecture from the making of the country to making of the culture with Dr. Ahmed Al-Dubai, who is the Director of Research in Scotland about cybersecurity, and he is a leader of a group of researchers of 50 researchers. Thank you.
Peace be upon you. My greetings to all of the attendees. At first, I'd like to thank Tawakkol Karman Foundation for giving us this opportunity and for inviting me to participate in this conference. It was a very beautiful week that I spent in Yemen, where I visited Taz University, and in the same week I received this invitation to participate in this conference. I was very lucky to visit Taz University and to get to know to the suffering of the students, of the professors, and I visited laboratories of that university, and I came back with a very good perception full of the different emotions. The biggest feeling I got was to appreciation. I appreciate the efforts of the professors of Taz University because they kept doing their job under these difficult situations. Let us give them a big clap. Also, I found out how the students were great. I visited them during the summertime, and although it was summertime, a lot of students attended. We had a full hall of students, 50 of ladies and 50 of gentlemen. So our people can achieve the things that no other people can do. When I looked at the projects that the students prepared, I found out that they were equal to the projects prepared by Dutch students, although it was prepared under very difficult situation, under war conditions. Despite all of this, the students were able to understand what the scientific material and to come up with very excellent projects. So before I start with my lecture, I'd like to thank the scientific committee under the leadership of Mr. Al-Ghafouri and Ms. Miskil Junaid also. So the title of my paper was From Knowledge Industry to State and Civilization Industry, and I wanted to mention state here because we knew state for more than 1,000 years, and it is very hurtful if knowledge is not leading us to the creation of a state. It will be useless. you might be listening or hearing some new terms like the cultural warming. So I'll be talking about Yemen and the knowledge industry, causes of cultural warming, a step toward the true direction. I didn't come from Scotland only to participate here in this conference, but I want to take a step in the right direction in relation to the education in Yemen, and to make it my project, a project for me. When I saw how my friends working under this difficult situation in the Yemeni universities, I felt shy actually. They are working under a very difficult situation with no salaries, and they are spending the best years of their lives under the university halls. This is the definition of the scientific research in short. So it is on the screen, and it is the application of certain political ways to solve economic, political, and social problems. And we need all of these to be in the Yemeni mentality and Yemeni imagination. We provided the humanity with civilizations. We provided when people were still in the caves. We were advanced people. These participations, as I said, didn't come by coincidence. Rather, they were a result of creating knowledge and producing knowledge, which is a thing that Yemeni were none of throughout history. So what happened to Yemen? When I talk about civilization retention or civilization warming, Yemen was a great country that created civilization. Now people are striving for a food basket. It is a harmful reality. I'm not only talking about the political crisis in Yemen, but as an academic, I look to this issue deeper. The problem in Yemen is that we are backwarded in creating the industry. This country lacks, hundreds of years ago, the abilities that making it capable of creating actors. We have this look at education that is limited look. We look at education that it is only a tool to get the certificate at the end. We only depend on individual efforts here and there, scattered around, as my brother mentioned, Dr. Saeed, when he was talking about Abdul Razzaq Sanani and other people. All of them were exerting individual efforts. By the way, for Abdul Razzaq Sanani, I met a Saudi colleague who told me that he was humbly in the school of religion, and he didn't know that scholars used to come from Iraq to him to learn Al-Hanafi. We have a lot of great big scholars who are like stars in the sky, who participated in the humanitarian civilization before and after Islam. But we don't want these efforts to stay individual. We need to institutionalize them. That's why here I'm talking about taking a step in the right direction, which is how we can build a national council for research in Yemen, academic research in Yemen. We need a sustainable funding for that council for research. like the experiment of the financing of the youth fund, and it was done by the Minister of Youth. It was a simple but innovative experience, and it provided a sustainable fund for youth and sport in the country. Maybe it is not continuous now, but it was a very good idea, and we need to localize the idea of having to solve a problem through scientific research or academic research method. So when we want to visit a research center or a scientific or academic center, then we are on the right path. It hurt me when I visited the country to see a lot of private school, a lot of private clinics, and I didn't see big number, rather there were not big number of research centers. Yemenis is still thinking about scientific or academic research as if it is a luxury, which is not correct. This mechanism, I'm providing it for you now, and I hope that Tawakkol Karman Foundation adopt the idea to create this invitation to create this scientific council or national academic research council. It will depend. It will be composed of different committees. So I need the Yemeni universities to participate in the academic research. I need them to be studying the scientific economic problems and then solve them through scientific academic research. Why not? Why our universities is isolated and they are not participating in research? So we need a real partnership with the private sector. I established the Said University in Taz City, and it is providing a good education, and we wanted to cooperate with this governmental university for research to build small universities. Universities are not only to get certificates, we need companies to be emerging from the universities as a projects for the students, and we can find or create a mechanism in order to support decision making. That's what should be the role of universities and the role of the scientific research. So we can start only with 1,000 real, but these should be invested in the good direction, the right direction that we should be going on. Also to be like Qatar and other Arab countries, and to look forward to them and see how they are, how research there is funded by national funds for that purposes, and how they have a special dedicated fund for scientific research and academic research, whilst in Yemen we don't have that. We need also to make scientific and academic research dedicated to solve a problem. I remember when I showed this map in one of the forums in London. Next to me, Jack Straw, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, there he looked at this map and he told me that we need to reconciliate with the Yemeni geography. We have to be in our right position. We have to take the right position in regard to the Yemeni geography and Yemeni land. So we possess this very important location. So we have Jabal Sabr mountain 200,000 and Al-Mukha 3,000. So this is a very important thing that we need to benefit from this location. We need real research on demography and sociology. Why Yemenis are fleeing through sea. we should not be afraid from the sea. We should correct our relationship with the sea, because it will lead us to creating thousands of new job opportunities. We need to reconcile with the school. We need the student to go to school happily, going to school. They love their school, like the students here in Scotland. But in Yemen, they do not love going to school. We need really this reconciliation with the idea of the school. We need to go to the roots of the problem. It is very painful to see how students are dropping off school in Yemen. We need research in the Yemeni psychology to rebuild the relationship to its healthy, normal situation. To make the school a place that is attracting the students and the first option for the family. Why don't we make the even the first classes of the middle school also obligatory like Britain? The family who are not capable of sending their children to school, they should also be receiving state assistance for this purpose. We need research on another problem, which is food security. We are a people who we used to to form a big food basket for the whole Arab Peninsula. So why now we are suffering from a food security problem? This is ridiculous, because we are a very rich country on the agricultural side. We are capable of growing a lot of crops and of being sufficient food-wise if we got the right resources and capabilities. Your time is off, so you need to close your word now. So what I want to emphasize on, in summary, that scientific research, academic research should be dedicated to solve the problem of Yemen. And we cannot achieve real solutions for the problems unless we got stable and we rejected sectarianism. As a Yemeni, I do not accept to split Yemen into Shafi'i and Zaydis. This is an ugly idea. We are Muslim Yemeni, we are Muslim Arab Yemeni. That's it. Sectarianism in Yemen is a disease, and we should be ending it. Dr. Marwan in the morning said that things that gather us as Yemeni is more than the things that differentiate us, and this is reality. We can make a Yemeni dialogue, a real dialogue in Yemen, and we can surpass all of the difficulties in order to have an independent Yemen that can develop the Yemeni human. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you for your words. All of the topics are very important and crucial, but because we have a limited time, we couldn't talk more about this research. We have 15 minutes for each research. We cannot have an effective academic research without having a qualitative education that is calling for innovative solutions. Now we have a lecture under the title of Towards Another Education in Yemen. We have Dr. Habib Srouri joining us remotely, and he is a professor in the computer science and a novelist. He's living also in France.
يريدونه لا يجد غالبا فرقا ملموسا مع التعليم السائد عربيا، إن لم يكن ما يريدونه قاصرا جدا. قاصرا لأنه يعتبر التعليم وسيلة لاكتساب بعض المعارف لأداء وظيفة معينة لا غير. لا بطبيعة الحال التعليم منظومة متكاملة دينية أخلاقية اجتماعية تعلم الطالب كيف يفكر بحرية، لا كيف لا يفكر، كما هو حال تعليمنا أو تعليمنا العربي عموما واليمني على المعنى الخاص. كيف يفكر بدون أي خطوط حمراء دينية أو سياسية أو طائفية، كما هو حال التعليم العربي عموما واليمني على المعنى الخاص. لذلك نحتاج أولا إلى رؤية متكاملة تجيب على أول الأسئلة الكبرى. ما هي المواصفات والملكات التي نتمنى من المدرسة والجامعة في هذا القرن الواحد والعشرين أن تزرعها وترفيها في مقدرات الطالب قبل بدء سنوات التخصص الجامعي؟ طبعا عندما أقول من الطالب أقصد ضمن الذكر والأنثى والطالب والطالبة على نحو متساوي ومختلط طبعا. السؤال الثاني، كيف الوصول إلى تحقيق هذه الرؤية؟ لا يمكن الخوض فيه قبل وضوح الرؤية ونقاش العميق والاستنفاف حولها أولا، باستفادة من تجارب التعليم في دول العالم المتطورة التي تمتلك أنشئ بها. إذا لسه ما جاءت السؤال الثاني الآن، هذه الملكات والوصفات العشر المطلوبة لطالبنا كما نشرتها في صحيفة فلوريدا مغربية. واحد، طالب ضليع بالمعارف العلمية العامة، يمتلك روحا أهمية عالية ومقدرة على التفكير الحر والابتكار، مسلح بمعارف حضارة اليوم في المجال العلمي والتكنولوجي، لا سيما الثقافة الخوارزمية، مفاهيم وآليات عمل الذكاء الاصطناعي، الميكانيكا الكونية، تاريخها وآفاقها، الخبرة البيولوجية وغير ذلك من أساسيات تعليم اليوم. أكثر من بودكاست عمله معي شباب عرب، أحدهما بودكاست يمني، تناولت بالتفصيل هذه النقاط العشر وشرحت تحديدا ما هي ثقافة الحد الأدنى الخوارزمية.
First of all, let's mention that the aim of education is not about just giving information, but also the ability to distinguish truths and realities. That's why from all over the world we witness that some superstitional thoughts or not real thoughts present and prevail, and we notice that when we think about education in a free way, it is innovation, knowledge, and some behavior which is a daring behavior to look at all these aspects from a truth point of view, and with different experiences, truth is attained. In this way, a the scientific methods are very important.
التربية عموما وأن يستدل بها في سياق
وبمعنى نعم
وينير بها. النقطة الثالثة
there's some evidences
أشرت لك إذا
in
نفذ
some
الإنسان
of the universities
بها يستطيع مقاومة
in a way to improve the
والسياسات
humanitarian culture
العنصرية والطائفية
and
والفاشية.
stand in the place of
نحن
sectarianism trends,
الثقة في العلاقات البرامجية والإنسانية
especially in
في عالم
human
أنا
relationships.
الآخر. الانتماء للمدينة من منظوره
If it's
ثقافي
me and the other
وليس
in this
أيديولوجي.
culture, from
النقطة
a
الرابعة
cultural point of
قال لك
view.
سلبية التمييز بين التاريخ الديني
And the fourth
المؤسسة الثقافية
point
والبحثية والتاريخ العلمي
is
المؤسسة الحقائق
about the
المقارنة
scientific
بين المستجدات العقلية
history of science,
بدون كشف
learning history of
حقائق
science,
الماضي
and
نتيجة
delve
تحديث التاريخ
into the
الذي يكون
realities of
المسؤول
the
إنها
past and history,
واستشراف اتجاهات المستقبل
and
من ناحية التراجع
also
والازدهار.
evaluating history
النقطة
from
الخامسة
this point of view.
طالب قادر على
5
تحليل
points:
الأخبار
a
الوردية
student
والحالية
who is capable
على مدار
to
استشرافها
realize
وضبط
their
على استشراف
mistakes
إدراك الفيك نيوز
and
والتحليل الإعلامي
evaluate themselves
وقيمة
and not to repeat
الحساب
the
الواقع
same
العلمي
mistakes. The ability to
ومعرفة مسافة
look at
تمهيد
the
السيطرة عليها بين
future
علمه
and knowing
وبين
the
شبكة الأعلام
alternative
والإعلام.
solutions for their
النقطة
problems.
السادسة طالب
6th
إنه
point:
يدرك طبيعة المجتمع السعودي بين قوسين كما عرفه ديديغور في 1969
بفهم
المجتمع السعودي
طبيعة
الإندونيسي
التعليم هذه،
آفاقه المتضاربة
فإن ومعرفة
وأهدافه المختلفة
المجتمع الذي نعيش
تدرك
فيه
أو تداعيات
وتأثير
الأفكار
العوامل
المختلفة
المختلفة
التعليمية
عليه
تتابع الشخص العربي ويعمل
والمشاكل
بحرص
التي
على
يعيشها
الحفاظ
أيضا
على هويته والحفاظ على
بمعرفة وإدراك ما هي
انسانيته
المشاكل التي يعيشها
البيئية
وبحماية
التي
ما
نحن فيها.
يتوجب علينا حمايته. And
طالب
to distinguish between religion and education. Yemen is very important. The other thing is the priority of being open for the future is very important and essential. Our history, which we learn and educate, is full of non-truths, and I talked about this, about Tabari and Ibn Kathir, about the great Yemeni leader Al-Hala Al-Ansi. We need to revisit all these historic sources and clean them from all these lies and from the hatred speech also included in them. Also, they need to educate the skills of predicting the future, to look at the horizons of our life. We talked about this just a few days ago in Beirut in a very good meeting attended by big thinkers, Arab thinkers. Thank you so much, and my heartfelt salutations to you. Thank you so much, Mr. Habib Sururi.